You are listening to Designing the 21st Century. Today I want to speak about the level of furniture found in shops and department stores. It is an important issue and a sensitive one that is rarely brought up in public, but has remained a hot topic in architecture and design communities. I've heard people calling it poorly made, mediocre, and so on and so forth. And I would like to talk about this today. In the 20th century, manufacturers were eager and motivated to produce avant-garde furniture, and this is why it became available to consumers. Look at the American department stores Macy's, Lord & Taylor, and A&S, which offered the American public the most up-to-date and daring furniture available at the time. During the mid-century years, it was Herman Miller and Knoll who were famously investing in producing some of the iconic furniture of the century. The Japanese department store Takashimaya was the source of art furniture, particularly memorable for the benchmark exhibition of French design curated by Charlotte Perriand in the 50s. And then when you look in the 70s and 80s, it was Bloomingdale's that became the lead tastemaker by exhibiting chic, fantastical space-age furniture brilliantly curated. So what really happened to furniture design and why the best of it is found only in galleries and museums, but not in shops? For this discussion, I invited Sami Reiss. He writes the best-selling newsletter, Snake, covering auctions, design vintage furniture, and fashion. Sami's articles have been published in GQ, in Wall Street Journal, ESPN, and the New York Times. Hi, Sami. How are you?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know, what's really happening in furniture? You know, we have to remember that furniture design has a tremendous role in influencing the taste of the time. Mm-hmm. So what's happening today?
Well, nowadays, I think it's a little bit fragmented in the sense that you were touching on this, but most of the interesting designs that are coming out now are done on an art or gallery level. They're not being produced at scale. And then the other stuff that is sort of contemporary and is being produced at scale tends to be derivative. It tends to focus, just aesthetically, I should say, it tends to focus on certain time periods, late 1950s through mid-60s in a lot of ways. And then there's also the kind of, it happens also too, the new lamps that have been coming out, on a cheaper level are the mushroom lamps that are all taking off of the Italian postmodern design, but a little bit flattened. But yeah, for the most part, the stuff that's coming out at scale is if it's not derivative, it's poorly constructed just from a material standpoint. And if it's original, then it's just, and there certainly are things like that, it's just not yet or not now being produced at scale, and it almost really isn't available to consumers.
You know, if we think about the 50s, mm-hmm. and it's very, very well portrayed in Mad Men series.
Yes, absolutely.
People in the 50s were really aware of what contemporary design was all about.
Yes.
They saw it in advertisement, they saw it in shops, they saw it in movies, in commercials. But today, I have a feeling that consumers don't even know what contemporary furniture is all about.
I mean, it's effectively, in some ways it's invisible, especially compared to how it was in the 1950s. Some of it, I think, is maybe because of price points. The so much of the mid-modern furniture that was driving, the aesthetic then and the conversation was, these items were sort of made with a philosophical bent, and so it was futuristic, even if it wasn't very futuristic in design. But they were meant for young families, they were meant for younger people, and they were effectively priced accordingly. And they were also made with very, humble materials, as you've written about and explained. Just, simpler woods, and it didn't go into chrome yet, and it was just very kind of democratic. So I think when they had this democratic furniture at the time, it was so aesthetically excellent. It just spread. And now something has happened where the cat's out of the bag. I'm not. There are a lot of factors at play here. We're probably going to list them all, but it sort of the contemporary furniture that's around now is not really speaking to consumers, to individuals who are moving into their first apartment with their husband, wife, girlfriend, partner, and they want to, get a nicer sofa, or they are moving into their first apartment. And there sort of was with I'll mention IKEA. It's an excellent example of great design at scale, but that's almost it for the last at least decade, I'd say.
Yes, when we think about fashion, people have much more idea about names,
Yes.
about fashion houses, what this stands for, what's the other stands for. Do you think people your generation, also my generation,
Sure.
but let's talk about your generation. Do you think that people really know names of furniture designers?
I think that there are some folks. I think there's sort of a delineation mark with individuals, young kids under 25, who are really being educated almost completely online, almost in an academic way, either through TikTok or videos or some of the stuff you do, stuff like that. And there's kind of a stickier understanding and Rolodex for these people of like who these designers are.
This is the official taxonomy of sofas. Every sofa owner falls into one of these categories. First up, we got the Instagram trend victim. We're talking your Togos, your Bellinis, your DS600 Snakes. These are all iconic sofas that have turned into starter pack memes. You thought you could buy good taste and get your way into a Dwell magazine feature, but now you're in deep credit card debt and all your friends think you got a dupe. Then we got the NPC bro. This is the Chesterfield, the Lawsons, the Tuxedos. This dude's apartment smells like AG1, okay? He tells people he's making big moves, but he's spending most of his time arguing about Patek Philippe on What You See. His Saturday night, Lululemon pants, Air Force Ones, rolling 5 dudes deep. His LinkedIn goes crazy. Then we got the marketing girly. She's going for something maybe Art Deco-y, maybe the Muse by Ellison Studios, maybe the Boca Lip Sofa if she's a little adventurous. This girl's been to every Carbone in the continental United States. She has an open tab at the Real Real. She goes to the same workout class as Emma Stone. She just drunk texted the NPC bro, even though he ghosted her. If you're a basic rich person, you're going for something airy and featureless, like a curved back boucle, cloud sofa, the Perron sofa. This is your fourth home. You're there once a quarter. You're the parents of the marketing girly. You saw the staging of the apartment and you asked the realtor, hey, can I keep it? A Cartier bracelet may have fallen in between the cushions. Who can even keep track of this kind of thing? Okay, and then we have the horny creative director. This is the Terrazza, the Soriana, the Dune, a Judd daybed with just like a tatami mat. This guy has a Peter Beard or a Dennis Hopper photo book on his Noguchi table. He quids in to pick up smoking. He daydreams about getting asked to do Criterion Closet pics. He listens to the Red Scare podcast, but he doesn't tell his DSA friends.
But speaking to my generation, millennials or whatever, it's definitely behind fashion. And of course, there are individuals whose hobbies, who work in design, or whose hobbies is collecting design, getting, upgrading their furniture at home, going to see, design museums when they're visiting places. But those are passionate people. They're sort of outliers. I think on a mass level, as far as across the generation, no, there's something about fashion where people can distinguish between, Chloe, Louis Vuitton, Prada, Miu Miu, and there's sort of you have runway shows every 3 to 6 months. There's a whole vibrant press organism, and there are DIY press people on, influencers and people doing videos, and there's a real easy way to get all this information. But with design now, it's difficult even, and I do this for a living, to get true deep information on a lot of ancillary designers from the past. And it's even trickier to get it on contemporary designers.
And you're not talking about what you do.
Yes.
And I read you and I find it fascinating. You write a lot about the quality.
Yes.
You write a lot about how things are made. So how are they made?
Well, in the past, I think, and I don't have any, true insight. I didn't go to these factories or anything like that, but just I come from a kind of vintage clothing background, and that's a very tactile medium. And you touch the clothes and you feel them and everything like that. And it carries over in a big way to furniture, where you can look at a chair recliner from now and 20 years ago and 30, and you can look at the leather, and these are things that I think any individual that's over 20, They've seen 100 pairs of leather shoes, leather jackets. You have this kind of inbuilt literacy to figure these things out. And the quality of the wood. And it's just, you see these things, and even the fact that there's almost sort of a selection bias for these items, where any vintage item from the 60s, 70s that is still around now that's being sold is, of course, of excellent quality because it's been used or it's been out there, it's getting oxidized, the air is, touching it, and it's 45 years later, it's older than me, and it just looks in great shape. It's, I have a Magistrati veranda sofa that, I bought on auction for quite cheap, and it just, it's like 30 years old, and it's brand new.
This is what's amazing is that the vintage material is less expensive than the new.
A little bit.
Much more well done.
It's something
Can you give an example of something that you have written about recently?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I'm writing right now about Tobias Scarpa. And so just there's a lot of interesting stuff on auction now, but I was also, I'm writing a different story about lighting, and I was alerted to their kind of, and the name escapes me right now, but curtain type overhead lighting. And there with their sofas, there's, this Soriana, there's so many other ones. And the leather quality, the kind of, even the cushion quality, the shape, it's these things that they just, I don't know how they do it. I mean, some of it is just, if it's made in Italy, it's just generally well made. And these are effectively hyper luxury products. They were marketed and priced on, from my understanding, not, someone who, from my understanding as a consumer and a researcher and someone who buys and sells this stuff, they were marketed and sold on a quite mass level, but they were made very luxury. And there are analogs in fashion. Even you pick up a pair of Levi's jeans from the 1950s, or you pick up a Les Paul Gibson guitar from the 60s, and you can't replicate it today because of labor costs. A Levi's from the 60s would probably be a $1,500 pair of jeans or more. It's of better quality. It's thicker. There's something, maybe it's the cotton. Who knows what it is? There's so many factors that go into it. It's almost a difference in kind than of degree compared to stuff that's being made. So I don't think it's distinct to furniture, but it's almost maybe the most visible.
So what type of feedback do you get from your readers about furniture?
Sure. Well, there's sort of two types of feedbacks. One of them is, originally, if people don't see the newsletter, there's sort of a perception around furniture that says, if I want anything good, my options are, you go to the big furniture store that takes up a whole block, you buy something for, a few grand in the mid-thousands that it's finally something nice, and then you don't like it. It's not really true to your taste. Or if it's vintage, who knows? There's almost sort of an education problem, which is, hey, who knows? Do I like this? Do I like that? Do I like Italian? Do I like Deco? Do I like French? Is this going to fit in my house? There's a lot of logistical kind of feedback issues, which I think sort of almost is the future of furniture and design to younger consumers as a business. Is how are we going to solve, because not everyone, but effectively people are maybe reading my newsletter, they're renters, they're a little younger, and the question is almost, am I going to go on vacation, Jamaica for a week, or am I going to get a couch that I really love? And the way it is, and the vintage stuff, I think, in a sense, it's the best answer for consumers. But at the same time, it's not truly scalable. Not everyone, if there's only one, Scarpa, there's three Scarpa sofas on auction next week, which is great. But there's only 3. And how many people subscribe?
And where are the auctions?
I think, let's see, there's one, I want to say, in Milan, and there's one in Pennsylvania.
So you follow the auctions all the time,
yeah,
right? You follow the small auctions, and you find things, and you write about them.
Yes.
But I know what really bothers me as an educator and design historian, that people today have no idea what a contemporary chair looks like.
I agree. Yeah.
Have no idea. If they don't go to one of the top galleries, which not accessible and not available to everybody.
Yes.
They have no idea what contemporary chair. For them, a contemporary chair is something that looks very mid-century, but was made in China or something like that.
I agree, 100%. And effectively, it's some of it is maybe a distribution issue where the made in China knockoff mid-century chairs are the ones that are showing up in hotel lobbies and restaurants and, you know, photo shoots perhaps. And then the other one is that I think some of it is maybe a media issue where there's a difference in the contemporary design stuff that's coming out in galleries and is really kind of pushing the limit. The enterprise readership for this, you know, people who work in design are among the most intelligent people, and they can spot when a story has happened the second or third time. But if you're writing it to a mass audience, it's always almost brand new. It's almost one of these things where you just sort of have to almost repeat it. Hey, this is what is it, you know, this is the excellent stuff that's at Bruce's gallery or somewhere else. And even speaking for myself, I know some of this stuff, but I don't have as much of a facility with contemporary design as I do with the vintage stuff, if only because it's been a little bit easier for me to learn about this because I can go to the library. There's the design encyclopedia. There's so many books. There's this whole kind of tactile world of education materials that for me have always been easy to find. But it's a little bit of a black forest when it comes to contemporary design and knowing what's out here. And also too, the tyranny of small differences, because everyone is such an educated consumer now when it comes to fashion, when it comes to maybe music, cinema, and everything like that. I think a lot of us know in the back of our heads that we don't have almost a literacy in design. So no one wants to be embarrassed and single out a chair and be like, this chair speaks to me, I love it. And that is maybe the chair that you would have to be in, you know, you'd have to be at Salone to understand that was the chair that people are poo-pooing and saying, oh, that's a little bit of a flat chair. We actually like this one that came out this season. And I think we're all like that. Not all like that. Many of us are like that with fashion and other media, but we're very, very, very behind speaking, you know, very, very generally when it comes to design.
And then when you go into a gallery
Yes.
and you want to buy a piece of furniture, contemporary furniture,
Right.
it's very expensive.
Yes.
It's expensive because it's not created, it's not produced in
Right.
industry.
Exactly.
And it's not produced in industry because the industry is not interested
Yes.
the way it was interested many, many years ago.
Sure.
And there is really no single period in the past that furniture was less, was that uninspiring, that was that less innovative.
That's true.
And it really start with the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Manufacturers, instead of hiring designers to design new furniture,
Yes.
instead of that, they buy rights from states.
Yes.
To reproduce
Yes.
what was already designed in the 50s or 60s or sometimes even 70s.
Yeah, of course.
And that has
80s as
no
well, yeah.
relationship to our life today.
Right. Well, it in a sense, I think I have to wonder when that all started happening. Part of me, my insight, or not insight, my thinking about this is that the R&D sometimes that goes into a new piece of furniture, especially if you're using a new type of material, and especially if you're kind of trying to do something a little special, a little futuristic, it's sort of exponentially ballooned in the last 40 years, either because of labor costs or because of material costs, because of globalization. You can make stuff in China cheaper. So the sort of drivers of design, which traditionally were, designers who just spent as much time. They would spend 6 months on an unsuccessful product and then 6 months on a product that for some reason, took off like the moon. And effectively each decision each decision bought the other one. So it's just that's how they thought about these things. They weren't, MBAs or anything like that. And now, if all you have to do is buy an archival design, you don't have to put any R&D into it. You don't have to stress test new materials. You might make it more green. You might like try out a new like grain or leather or something like that. But effectively, it's the same thing is happening in cinema, right? It's all IP. It's all, you don't have to hire writers to test out a new movie and then get a new director and see if he's up to snuff and have new cinematographers and test out a new crew. You can just make a sequel, another sequel to a movie that's been proven as profitable. And in a sense, it's the name of the game.
It's easier.
Yes.
It's less expensive.
Yep.
But it really hurts
Yes.
the progression of design
Yes.
and the story of design. So, Sami, thank you very much
Thank
for
you very
these
much.
insights.
It's a pleasure.
This is Daniela Ohad. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Designing the 21st Century.